I'd like to ask you, Lissette Calderon, what is the biggest risk?
Well, I think in today's world, probably the biggest risk you have is uncertainty. And how do you underwrite uncertainty? What happens next? How do you underwrite whether it's tariffs, insurance numbers, construction costs? What does that uncertainty look like, and how do you underwrite that? How do we do it? We really can't avoid it because we're developers, so of course our job is we really think about how do we minimize it. So we make sure that every project is built oftentimes by the same team, the same architect, the same project, and same contractor and so forth. And then we enter into a guaranteed maximum price contract, so ahead of time we already know what that number is going to look like. Of course, we build in contingencies, so we minimize those uncertainties. So that's always the hard part. And then in terms of transferring the risk and the insurance, and that's probably how you get to a little bit of the avoiding the risk. You know, Especially in South Florida, one of the things that people always talk about is kind of like sea level rise and flood level, and how does climate play into what we're doing? Well, I can't move our projects out of South Florida because they're in South Florida. The number of our projects. So in terms of transferring the risk, we think about master policies. Our projects are on master policies. So again, we're looking at the risk kind of throughout the entire portfolio, not just on one independent portfolio. And that has been, very effective for us in terms of mitigating our insurance expenses. Because really the two biggest uncontrollables that we have as operators are real estate taxes and insurance. So real estate taxes, we've really been able to address that in Florida through, kind of this statutory, ordinance that's now the live local. And, we're really able to address that and work with that. And then from an insurance standpoint, it's always, the next big challenge. And the way insurance numbers, have gone up historically. And we've been able to mitigate that through the master policy. And, and how do we avoid, to the extent possible avoiding, is we build really well. So we've got the flood panels and we build at the right elevations, and we put in, kind of the right, glazing and glass and everything that meets or exceeds the South Florida building codes. And then, we try to go into neighborhoods that we know make sense from a, climate standpoint. So Alapata's up on a ridge. And so we really take into account a lot of these things, and we think about it. And, it's always very exciting to us, after, a big storm, where you'll see kind of flooding on the streets, and some of these pictures that go nationally, our areas, are immediately dry right after the storm. So and I guess that's how we probably avoid it. We build in great locations and we build a great product. How do we minimize it? We get into like, guaranteed maximum price and really kind of understand what the uncertainty and really try to mitigate that uncertainty. And then in terms of transferring it, we look at master policies and how we put those in place.